Hey gang, thanks for tuning in. I'm doing this very, very special report on these late allegations, these crazy allegations against Vince McMahon. But I wanted to give you a heads up before we get started. There are some pretty crazy things in this story that unfortunately we have to go into some detail on. So please use discretion. Let's get started. This is the fall of Vince McMahon. Hey gang, welcome back. This is part 13, the final part of our very special series on the fall of Vince McMahon. If you have been with us this long, thank you so much. If you have not checked out parts 1 through 12, I go through in deep detail into each one of the claims made in the lawsuit, and I wrap it all up. In last episode 12, I talked about what specific claims were made. We talked about the gifts that she was given by Vince during the escalation period from 2019 to 2021. We talked about what specific things is Grant claiming, and we talked about what forms of relief is she asking for. So it kind of provides the why, right? The question throughout all of the entire thing. I've told you this story. The question throughout this entire story has been, why is she filing this lawsuit? And certainly, why is she filing it now? And I think that episode answers all of those questions. So please check it out if you haven't. This time, we're going to go into the fallout. Now, full disclosure, this video is going to come out in a little over 2 weeks. And it is by no means going to be fully inclusive of everything that's even happened in the last couple of weeks. But there have been some very interesting things of note in ways that this lawsuit has really impacted not just the business behind the camera, but what's actually happened in front of the camera as well that are very interesting to talk about. So just for a lack of clarity in the timeline here, the lawsuit was filed, really I should say, The Rock was named to the board of TKO on January 24th. The lawsuit is filed on the morning of January 25th. 2024, and within 24 hours the next day, so that would be Friday the 26th, TKO issues a statement about it, and then the next day on Saturday the 27th there's the Royal Rumble. So just a little bit of an understanding of just how crazy and chaotic and hectic everything is during this time. Very interesting time for the lawsuit to drop, and there's probably something strategic about that too. I want to talk quickly about the statement that was released 24 hours after the lawsuit was filed. If there's one thing that just is so abundantly obvious about this entire situation at this point, if you've been following the industry at all for any period of time, if you've seen lawsuits like this come up before, even if you've seen similar lawsuits to this pop up in other industries or other areas of life, you can see that in comparison to the way that WWE has handled this in the past, the way that TKO is handling this is very, very different. Typically in the past, it's handled much quieter. Things are swept under the rug. It doesn't get nearly as much coverage. This is as public as it ever has been. And there's always been some very bold statements that come out from Vince McMahon that always get the full backing of the company. And that is not what happened this time. Very quickly afterwards, within 24 hours, Vince McMahon issued his own statement. I'm not going to get into the details of it here, but to generally summarize it up, it basically says, these are false and baseless claims. I intend on fighting them and getting my day in court, and that's going to be that. Basically, in that same time period, within 24 hours after the lawsuit was filed, TKO came out and they issued their own statement. And my God, if Vince McMahon was a burning building, TKO would not be running fast enough from it. Let me just read a brief excerpt from it here. Quote, and this is a statement to Variety from a TKO spokesman. Quote, Mr. McMahon does not control TKO, nor does he oversee the day-to-day operations of WWE. While this matter predates our TKO executive team's tenure at the company, We take Ms. Grant's horrific allegations very seriously and are addressing this matter internally. Close quote. So there is, the first part, okay, is the first part. Obviously they're going to try and distance themselves from him. But I don't know that there has ever been a statement issued from WWE that kind of has that level of weight, that kind of seriousness that is associated with it. And that just makes this lawsuit extremely unique in and of itself. And of course, perhaps adds quite a bit of credibility to the statements in the lawsuit. Again, if they were all, we're standing by Vince 100%, he's a great man, everybody here's worked with him for 1 billion years and we love him, the overwhelming number of people have had outstanding experiences with him, that's kind of what you would expect from a company that was really going to stand behind a particular person. That is not at all what happened this time. In addition, there was so much stink on this that the day before the Royal Rumble, so again, this is all happening on a Friday, right? The lawsuit gets filed on Thursday. On Friday, Vince McMahon makes a statement. On Friday, TKO makes a statement. And on that same Friday, Vince McMahon resigns from the board. And reportedly, this came basically directly from Ari Emanuel, the head honcho over there at TKO, basically telling him, you have to resign and you have to go. So all this happening very quickly, a whirlwind of excitement, all happening within 24 hours. Well, that same day, that same Friday, when all that stuff is going on, remember, they've got the Royal Rumble the next day on Saturday. Slim Jim, huge sponsor, been with WWE for forever. You can remember all the old Macho Man Randy Savage commercials from the 90s. Literally, the relationship dates back that far. An incredibly lucrative relationship for both companies. For some reason, I want to say it was like a $14 million sponsorship agreement that they had with WWE for the Rumble, I think. It was going to be like the Slim Jim Royal Rumble battle and stuff, and all kinds of advertising and commercials and stuff. They pulled it. Slim Jim pulled it literally like 24 hours before the Royal Rumble was going to kick off. They pulled it. And I have no idea what calls were made. I have no idea what was said. I have no idea. But the same day of the Royal Rumble, everything got completely reinstated and they got brought back into the fold. So they got very scared and somebody managed to retain them. I have no idea what was said or what was done, but they were in the process of running away from Vince McMahon and TKO just as fast as they could, and somebody convinced them to stay. Boy, would I have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation, because that must have been very, very interesting. I'm not sure how you convince a company like Slim Jim to maintain their sponsorship 24 hours after something like this drops. That is damage control on another level. Again, that same day, Vince McMahon resigns from the board of TKO. Very interesting. This, as we fully expected, casted a shadow over everything that happened at the Royal Rumble. There were some pretty significant changes that occurred at the Royal Rumble, specifically Brock Lesnar. No big surprise, most people aren't stupid. When your lawsuit names a WWE superstar / UFC champion, we know who you're talking about. We pretty much know you have to be talking about Brock Lesnar. Not a lot of confusion there. Brock Lesnar was pulled from the Royal Rumble and replaced by Braun Breaker. And again, this had very interesting consequences. Braun Breaker was supposed to eliminate certain people and was supposed to have himself eliminated. It's pretty safe to say that those were the same spots that they had lined up for Brock Lesnar. They literally just took Brock Lesnar out and put Braun Breaker in. So some very interesting changes coming down the pipeline. It would appear at least that they were going to set up some kind of a feud for Brock Lesnar going forward. All that appears to have been crumpled up and thrown in the garbage. After the Royal Rumble was over, the press conference associated with the Royal Rumble, it had this shadow that was held over it. There's really no other way to say it. Triple H was asked about it, which of course specifically difficult for him because this isn't just his ex-boss, this isn't just his mentor, this isn't just the person that brought him into this business and brought him up, but he's his father-in-law as well. So there's not just an incredibly close professional relationship between them, there's a personal relationship between them as well. He mentioned that he hadn't read the lawsuit up to that point, and he basically just tried to redirect everybody to, the excitement that had been going on. Cody was asked about it, and he kind of shook it off. Cody was away from WWE, during when a lot of these, he was over in AEW trying to build that company up and make that company successful during that period of time. So, he kind of is in a situation where he can just kind of shrug his shoulders, and he kind of answered without really answering. He kind of just went, well, we got to look out for each other, and we got to act like one big family, and I didn't really see anything myself, but of course, what does that really mean? These accusations take place between, let's say 2019 and 2022, when, Cody was nowhere to be found in WWE, wasn't really associated with the company at all at that point. So wasn't a lot of good, productive conversation happening at that time. John Laurinaitis issued a response of sorts via his lawyer. So this is after the first weekend, early the following week, late in January. He issued a statement on behalf of John Laurinaitis and basically claimed victimhood, claimed that he's a victim just as much as Janelle Grant is in this process. Again, adds a lot of credibility to the claims, in my opinion. Adds a lot of credibility to the claims in the lawsuit, which is basically, if you're John Laurinaitis and you know that all this stuff is true, what are you going to do? Yeah, you're going to try to you're going to try to turn state's evidence, right, as they might say. You're going to want to become an asset to the person that's attacking you. And so you essentially look at Janelle Grant and you say, hey, look, you're a little fish. I'm a little fish too. Let's go get the big fish together. Let's bury him together. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. But I'm not sure. We'll have to see what evidence he produces. We're going to have to see some pretty compelling evidence to convince us and the public as a whole that John Laurinaitis is a victim in this process. He's going to have to, if she has any kind of proof that any of these interactions with Laurinaitis took place, he's going to have a really hard time proving that he's a victim in this. In addition, again, as I mentioned on our main show in talking about this, Laurinaitis' lawyer came out subsequently with another claim regarding another member of the talent pool named Ashley Mazzaro. Ashley Mazzaro, unfortunately, ended her own life a couple of years ago. She had a long battle with mental illness and other struggles, and there were several claims associated with her time with WWE regarding sexual assault and other things that her boyfriend at the time has talked about subsequently, that she had talked about, and now Laurinaitis is kind of coming out and saying, yeah, WWE execs knew about these claims that had been made against her at a particular show in 2006 in Kuwait and in subsequent instances, specifically with Vince McMahon. So again, it's a clear turning, right? Oh, I'm a victim, and let me provide you with some insider information because I can be evidence to support your claim that WWE actually knew what was going on. I was a member of WWE. I knew that these claims went on, specifically in regards to Ashley Mazzaro and her claims, which of course now it would appear are true if Laurinaitis is to be believed. And I'm going to help you, prove that case. Could be very interesting. If a judge decides not to split them up, you could have this incredible situation where John Laurinaitis is a member of the class action. I don't know exactly what would qualify you as a class. I guess you could be employees of WWE that were victimized by Vince McMahon, but he could simultaneously become a member of a class action suit, suing a company for recompense, and then have an entirely separate lawsuit where he's being sued by other members of that same class action lawsuit to get recompense to him for participating in the process. So it creates this very odd, very convoluted potential future. Most takes on the internet and across the board were, obviously, you're shocked. There wasn't a lot of surprise, as it were, as they say. Obviously, a lot of claims like this have come up in the past. There have been a lot of reports of talent being very uncomfortable around Vince. Nothing this lurid and explicitly shared. The presumption being, assuming the facts in this lawsuit are actual facts, that there's a level of sophistication here on Vince McMahon's part that certainly would support the claim that this is not the first time that this has happened. And perhaps there are other people out there that want to make claims. That being said, there have been some isolated voices that are coming out quite critical of Janelle Grant. That's not fair. I don't mean quite critical. What I mean to say is aren't as generous to Grant as some of the other claims, some of the other support has been. Specifically, one sticks out, and that is Jim Cornette. I'm going to read a direct quote here from Jim Cornette on his initial thoughts on it. This is in the initial days after the lawsuit first broke in the story. Quote, "I'm sorry if I upset anybody in this, but if this was a completely unwilling relationship on one side of this thing, there are several key points in this relationship where most people would say, I've had all I can stand. I can't stand no more. Whether it was the head shit or it sounds like she was enjoying some of the relationship in terms of either financially or otherwise." And I want to keep going. I want to provide full context here. The question is, at what point after you're locked in offices against your will and violated against your will by multiple people and forced to send a variety of not just booty shots, but whatever the F was sent to other people and blah, 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 this, you're getting worth you're getting. So, again, not to provide my own interpretation here, but basically he's saying is that there was an exchange, which is supported by the lawsuit. The lawsuit says explicitly there is a quid pro quo. The color that Jim Cornette seems to be adding to this is that he's saying that so many lines had gotten crossed that nobody would ever cross those lines without getting something out of it. Let me continue the quote. Again, if it was something that happened and this woman said, "I'm incensed that you have done this and I'm going to complain to someone," or even if it was over some period of time where there were attempts made at activities like this and it was constantly turned down and she was either attacked or she was fired unjustly, this is going on for a while and she appeared to be more than amiable to doing a lot of it, close quote. Now, I'm going to get a little bit hyperbolic here to prove my point and to sort of point out that Cornette's logic doesn't make a lot of sense to me. While it's true, it seems incomplete. If a man attacks and sexually assaults a woman, let's say he, God forbid, grapes her or something like that, and drops $1,000 down next to her body, if she picks up that money and leaves, that really doesn't change the circumstance of the situation. Nobody would swoop in there and say, "Oh, well, you took the money, so that must make it okay." That would be a huge mistake if that was the conclusion that had been come to. Now, it's not exactly the same, and I'm not trying to say it's exactly the same. But in principle, the two situations are similar. Yes, we're talking about a BMW. Yes, we're talking about multiple escapades over a long period of time. But the real question that needs to be established is, did the events occur? Was there a quid pro quo established? And how much control did Vince McMahon actually have over her professionally, privately, reputationally, so on and so on and so on? Those are the important details to actually address the lawsuit. Was her life a complete and total living nightmare? Every moment of every day was consumed to this? Was she in Dante's 10th circle of hell? No. That's not really what the lawsuit claims. The lawsuit makes very specific claims about many specific claims about pretty specific instances that are associated with it that qualify for the types of abuse and neglect that the lawsuit alleges that she's entitled to recompense for. So, Cornette's comment, obviously, it's a pretty hot take. It's a pretty generalized take. I think it's incomplete, though, as many hot takes actually are. And I think it, again, I don't think he's trying to provide justification for what happened there. He's trying to provide a unique perspective. But I think it's It is unique, but it's extremely oversimplified, and it doesn't really add a lot of value to the conversation, unfortunately. The company continues to distance itself from Brock Lesnar. They are 2K24, WWE 2K24 is set to come out in the next couple of months. Initially, they had done a special edition cover, 40 years of WrestleMania, and a whole, Hogan and Andre and Undertaker are on the cover. Brock Lesnar was going to be on the cover. There are reports now that he has now been taken off the cover. So again, just like TKO is running from Vince McMahon, they appear to be sprinting from Brock Lesnar as fast as they possibly can. Most interestingly, Grant's lawyer has stated that there is a barrage of people who want to come forward. And if these claims are true, that's going to be absolutely necessary. You're going to have a barrage of people come forward to support the allegations and the claims. You really have to show a pattern of behavior. They can release her from the MDA, and she can make these claims. She can make any claims she wants in association with any information that the NDA might try and cover up. I mean, it seems like, assuming the basic facts are true, right? Assuming they said, we will give you this much money, and they didn't, then you've broken the contract, and now the contract is void, and a judge can determine that. Maybe a judge will determine that just based off of the salaciousness of the claims and looking for some kind of investigation. I think if the NDA is voided and Grant and her lawyer don't get together with a whole bunch of other people and actually support some kind of actual prosecution, that's going to look extraordinarily bad. So I would assume that that's going to happen. In addition, I would assume that this would like a Hydra, this lawsuit will end, and then 2 or 3 or 10 or 50 other lawsuits will pop up as a result of it. The only real question becomes, is McMahon the only named defendant? What role does Laurinaitis play in future lawsuits? What role does WWE and TKO play in future lawsuits? It's not really a question of if, it's really a question of when and how at this point. Boy, there was a lot there. And there is a lot more to come. This is really just the beginning of the journey of the fall of Vince McMahon. We'll have to see. I did this special because this is one of the most unique lawsuits that I think has ever been filed in the world of professional wrestling. As I read the lawsuit and familiarized myself with it, it became abundantly clear that over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, there have been a series of events. I keep referring to them as a constellation of events. Things like, Barrios and Wilson leaving the company, Vince McMahon being put under investigation by the board, Stephanie McMahon stepping up and taking over the company, and then very abruptly resigning a few months later. The arrangement with TKO being sold. Stuff that's happening in front of the camera. Brock Lesnar getting signed, but not really getting signed. What kind of arrangement? All these things seem... John Laurinaitis leaving the company. All these things that seem to not be connected at all. This lawsuit really seems to connect them together. And that's really what makes this lawsuit unique relative to any other lawsuit in the world of sports entertainment that I've ever been familiar with. There you have all these dots that seem completely unrelated in the constellation, in this great sky of professional wrestling. And this lawsuit draws lines between those dots and creates these connections between them. And it looks like this one of the craziest conspiracy theories that could ever be conceived. Honestly, certainly conceived in the world of professional wrestling. I mean, this is epic levels of coordination over years and years of time. If Grant's lawyer is telling the truth and there's a barrage of other people coming forward, man, that is astounding. And one other interesting thing to track is going to be TKO's participation. How much are they going to participate in this? How much are they going to be able to get the stink of Vince McMahon off of themselves, the stink of Brock Lesnar that's associated with this, and how much support, is this actually going to get? The last thing I'll say is One very recent piece of news is that apparently the feds have officially opened an investigation against Vince McMahon based solely on the claims of this lawsuit. They're looking into it right now. I'm sure from Grant and her lawyer, they're getting all the support that they can possibly muster. And that will be a huge, whenever the findings of that investigation come out, that is going to be a huge, huge boost to whatever is happening here. It's going to be a huge piece of information, and I will be sure to follow up on this particular topic in the weeks and months to come and provide you guys with updates. So, thank you very much for being with me this entire time, all 13 episodes. This was a special deep dive that I really felt like we had to do. We've been getting great feedback from you guys, so thank you very much. We're going to be doing more WWB Presents type content in the future, so please look forward to it. And if you've been with us this long, thank you so much. Please keep watching so we can keep wrestling with the business. We'll see you next time.